Hello, this is Ryan. I just wanted to come in before the episode starts to give you some content warnings. There will be discussions about sexual assault and the Mbryo gaze trope in this episode. Hey Rachel.
Hey Ryan.
How are you doing?
Okay.
You're doing... How out of Yum Yum are you doing? Yum being bad and Yum Yum being, well, of course, Yum Yum. I mean, I don't even need to use the phrase good. In fact, in the dictionary, they've removed the phrase good and replaced it with the Yum Yum because, as we all know, Yum Yum is synonymous and now dictionary definition of good. As in, is the writing in Star Trek Discovery Yum Yum? Of course, yes. So, out of that, how are you doing?
Why are you lying so much right now?
How do you know? I'm not lying. I'm telling the truth. I'm being very Yum Yum.
Okay, well, I suppose you didn't say what dictionary.
The dictionary. There's only one.
There's multiple
So how are you doing?
dictionaries, Ryan.
Out of Yum Yum, how are you doing? And how would you rank the previous episode that we didn't get to rank? I would rank it Yum. The previous episode, we didn't get to rank it. We're very sorry. We forgot. We were just too in the moment.
Yeah,
It's a Yum.
It's a Yum. And me right now is a Yum.
Wow, I can't believe this episode got to you like that. But maybe in despite of yourself, you'll enjoy it.
You did. This episode wasn't that bad. I think you have more gripes with it, but each time I say that, then I end up getting angry at the episode. So who knows?
Well,
Who knows?
let's get into our diatribing spiel. I'm Ryan, that's Rachel. We're doing our rewatch of Star Trek Discovery, so of course, spoilers galore for Star Trek stuff, because all of this connects, especially this episode, which obviously connects to a bunch of other Star Trek franchised episodes that involve the Mirrorverse, as will the next few episodes. We are doing our rewatch. Yum Yum, of course, we already went through it. Yum Yum means good, and why would you not want to name your podcast The Good Podcast? That's what we're called. They should have called it The Yum Yum Place instead of The Good Place. That would have been a better show title. But this episode, we're covering Star Trek Discovery Season 1, Episode 10, Despite Yourself, which I remember this very vividly. This was the mid-season-y break, and this was when it came back. So there was a few months, I want to say, in which we didn't know what was happening. There was all this, ooh, are they in the mirror universe? And I remember, more importantly, people who wanted hope being like, no, they're in the real Star Trek universe, and the universe that we've been watching this whole time has been the evil universe or a different one. That would explain why the writing and the technology and all that, but no.
That was me.
We're watching...
I was hopeful that it wasn't going to be...
Yep, but instead we get episode 10, Despite Yourself, which, according to IMDb, the synopsis goes as such. While in unfamiliar territory, the USS Discovery crew is forced to get creative in their next efforts to survive opposing and unprecedented forces and return home. That's a correct description.
That's fair.
Obviously, it's going to be missing some of the nuances here, but it's a pretty apt description. And
it's a very succinct summary that actually fairly describes what is going on. And that is it's actually describing the primary plot.
No, that's in the Prime universe.
You're an evil little sprite today, aren't you?
I'm Captain Connor, bitch. I'm gonna knife you and tell you before I knife you my entire plan to do so that way you're not caught off guard, which would work, but whatever. So, Rachel, we kind of said it before. You seem to enjoy this episode, or you didn't mind it as much, and you gave the impression that I did not like this episode. I want to state very clearly right now, this episode is a real...
You had to pause it several times.
Well, there's reasons to pause it several times, because there was just some information dumps that I needed to write down and make sure that we pointed out and discussed in this episode, or things that I want to query for further episodes, like, ooh, this came up, but... I gotta say, I feel
what have they actually done? What don't they actually follow through on?
I feel mixed. about this episode. There's lots of things I really enjoyed about it. There's lots of things that I do not enjoy. And I don't know until we finish this discussion of this episode of how I'm going to land on this fully, because there's lots of things I enjoy. There's lots of things I don't. And in my recollection, I enjoyed the little I did enjoy, and in my recollection, I do enjoy their little Mirrorverse romp.
Mm-hmm.
However, upon viewing it again through a second watching and noticing some technical aspects, script stuff, acting stuff, and just general pacing of this episode, I'm calling into question of how much I'm going to enjoy the Mirrorverse storyline on the second watching of this, because this episode felt to me a little bloated. It felt like it could have ended several times, but it just had to keep going. And I'm wondering if these future episodes that make up, what is this, a 3-4 part story, make it feel like maybe if it's, I'm worried if it's going to feel a little bit more spread across than it necessarily needs to be, because in this singular episode, that's my biggest critique. There's lots of other technical things, but my biggest critique is this episode felt a little bloated. It felt too long. It felt like it had several ending points, and it just felt like it just had stuff in there because they had to put it in, especially near the ending point where you could have ended at so many different points, but no, we've got to have another bit, and we've got to have another bit, and we've complained about that. We've critiqued that for previous episodes, but this particular one, I just threw my hands up in the air because there were several points where I was just like, oh my god, it's still going, and that drained my enjoyment out of it. And I'm really hoping that the future story of this alternate timeline, this alternate universe, parallel Mirrorverse stuff, doesn't have the same issue as a whole. But I'm worried because this is our intro to it, and since we're rewatching it, since we're streaming, in the stream culture where we don't have that few months break, we've gone week to week, this doesn't feel like it flows as evenly as hence I'm worried. But I like the Mirrorverse, Rachel. I just love that stuff. I'm not a huge Mirrorverse fan. I'm not like bending over backwards. It's always fun in Star Trek when they have the Mirrorverse as a throwaway thing, but for me, I don't need the Mirrorverse to be in every iteration of Star Trek. There are some people who are really bummed out that we didn't get a proper cool Mirrorverse storyline in Next Gen. We got like alternative universe stuff like yesterday's Enterprise, but we didn't get like a proper Mirrorverse thing. We got it in DS9, we got it in the original series, we got it in Enterprise. That's like the only good thing in Enterprise to me is the Mirrorverse stuff, which is referenced in this episode. So good for that.
Data from Rebel intelligence suggests that we're not the first ship from our universe to find ourselves here. It cites another Starfleet vessel, USS Defiant.
How is that possible? At last review, the Defiant was patrolling Sector 6 in our universe.
There may be some kind of temporal anomaly at play. It's unclear, but data suggests that in the future, Defiant will encounter a phenomenon that'll bring it into this alternative universe's past.
How did you feel about this episode?
It was fine.
Well, what about it was good enough for you to have a more positive outlook on it than previous episodes of the show, or just in general?
The characters actually show us who they are.
They also tell us a lot.
They also do tell us a lot, but I feel
there was a line, what is it, like, get out of the way, let the xenoanthropologist go to work, or whatever, and I'm like, oh, they're reminding us about that, huh?
Yeah, it's time for the xenoanthropologist to get to it. Yeah, so she does say that, but she brings up things in conversation that relate to her field of knowledge.
Which is good.
But they don't always.
Well, they do they tell us that she did it off screen, where she's like, I've been reading up about them, and they're this. Like, for the whole episode, she's been doing all the xenoanthropology stuff, which is the interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Off screen. And when I say interesting, I mean interesting if you like Star Trek.
Yeah.
Not interesting if you just want to watch a sci-fi action show. Like, I can get that it can be boring. I can get why they don't want it, but
so
that's what we praise about the earlier
like
episodes.
that Burnham is actually getting to do things. Like, she's still being perfect at absolutely everything, including murdering somebody.
chair is yours, Captain.
Dispose of him.
With pleasure, sir.
There have a few little moments, particularly with Tilly, I noticed, where the actress is getting to show her character through her responses to things without it feeling too overdramatic.
They're
when
allowed
she
to have range. They're allowed to be
Yeah.
dynamic performers. It's her and Michael too later in the
Yeah.
episode. It's
Like, I was noticing when Tilly is booted off the chair, which I like that as a little moment.
I enjoyed it too.
It was cute.
I remember it in Babylon 5, but it was cute.
Yeah, it's better
Mr.
than...
Bester, get the hell out of that chair.
Yeah, that was better.
Walter
But
Koenig. Mhm.
like, she's standing next to Burnham, and she's like almost hyperventilating and like looking at her for support, and we get to see that moment without them having to say it.
Yeah, remember in, what was it, the third episode when we got to meet Tilly and she was like, my character flaw is this, instead of what you're saying, where it's like, if it was earlier in the season, she would have just stated, my character flaw is happening right now, guys, I'm the right, but that is not to say that this episode
Doesn't
is
do
not
that.
filled with
No,
shit like that.
No, it does.
I
It does.
gotta-
But you asked me to say what I liked, and those are some of the things that I liked. What I didn't like was the scene that still made me dizzy.
Oh, well, we'll hold off on the spinning scene.
Well,
This is
this
is one of the spinning scenes. When I think
Yeah.
of spinning scenes, I think of season 2, baby.
that
I gotta ask you, this isn't
spin me right round, baby, right round.
We are entering the Mirrorverse stuff.
Yeah.
We've talked about it in our Captain's Log episode, the Star Treks we've seen. You weren't huge into DS9, and I don't even know if you got to the point where we got to see Mirrorverse stuff. You have not seen Enterprise enough. Like, you watched like the first season and the end stuff. The only Mirrorverse thing you've properly experienced outside of Discovery is the only, like, the one in Mirror Mirror in the original series.
Yep.
What do you think about the Mirrorverse stuff, and how do you feel about it being used in this particular episode? Not for the rest of the series, but in this particular episode. How did you feel? Because I do always ask that question, who's this show for, when I bring up when they throw these big or these nuanced Star Trek things in there. But for me personally, I think that they do a pretty good job of doing a bunch of references. But how do you feel about the Mirrorverse in general?
Well, since a lot of those references mostly pass me by unless you're just like, hey, it's that thing.
Yeah, it's that thing.
Like,
The Defiant?
yeah, that. But I agree that it mostly is done well and it holds up, but it's frustrating at the same time because there's
For its use in this?
yeah.
Oh, right.
Because it's setting up key things, but it doesn't feel. I don't know how quite to describe, but it just kind of feels like they're just making the shell of it, and it doesn't have any real structures to support the idea. So it doesn't feel cohesive or well developed.
Can you give any examples of how it fails in that regard? Because I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. I think this episode does a pretty good, for me, I think it does a pretty good foundational job of being a launching point for them to further explore this Mirrorverse story. And the Mirrorverse as a concept to general viewers or people new to Star Trek. And again, the Mirrorverse appeared in one episode in TOS, the original series, and it's a damn fine episode.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Mr. Spock has orders to kill you, Captain. He will succeed. Apparently. You will also appear to have killed him after a fierce battle. Regrettable, but it will leave me in command.
Well, what did you think of Mirror Mirror, the original TOS episode? And do you think there was enough there for them to spin it off into different stories and different... Like, is that a well that you can come back to a lot?
I think it is. But I think also part of the thing that I find odd about this particular version of the Mirrorverse is that the rest of the Star Trek canon, as far as I know, is consistent with what mirror universe they go to.
What do you mean?
Like, it's... Like, each of the crews go to a mirror universe, but the mirror universe that they go to is always the same.
It's the same one, yes.
Yeah. Whereas this one doesn't... Like, this universe in Discovery doesn't feel like it's the same mirror universe as the one that they visit in TOS.
Oh, that's because it's just Star Trek Discovery. Have you not watched the show?
It's not. But that's...
Well, that's
what
I
I mean.
That's
like,
one of the big critiques that I've always had about it, and I don't want to get too much into this episode, but I think it's bullshit that they make
and oranges.
the Vulcans good guys in this Mirrorverse instead of bad guys, which they were in TOS, or at least it was implied enough with the fact that Spock was on there.
Yep.
But
anyway. We're thinking about it too
we're
much.
thinking
right?
too much.
We're thinking
Yeah.
too much. We just need to not pay attention or care.
You guys are showrunners to the end, letting the secrets drip out by your storytelling, and I appreciate that.
I just realized something, and I don't know how I feel about it, which is the 2 episodes that we've enjoyed the plot of.
Are Caper episodes?
Our Caper episodes, but they're also the ones where we actually see negative impacts and or atrocities, because I'm thinking of the Harry Mudd
Wait, he
loop
murders
episode,
everyone a lot? Yeah.
where we see everybody get murdered. Like, there's a montage of Lorca being murdered, which
A
is...
great montage.
Love that moment. And then in this, it's just like, yes, we're actually getting to see characters in action and their reactions, and one of those scenes is when Michael has to murder somebody.
Which is a scene I still...
Self-defense, but still.
I feel frustrated by that scene because I like it and hate it at the same time.
Okay.
It's a mixture.
What do you appreciate about it?
About that scene
about
in particular?
the scene where she's killing Connor in the elevator.
Okay, what I appreciate about that scene is it's reinforcing by showing us how cutthroat the Mirrorverse is. If you've seen TOS, if you've seen the other Mirrorverse stuff, we know what it's about. But if you're a newcomer, they've told you, oh, Tilly, you killed your captain in his sleep, and this, and this, and this. This is them actually,
from the flu.
and Michael is reacting hostile to this, and we're being told a lot. But this is a scene where they're actually showing us that this guy will stab her, murder her, and it's showing us how their hierarchy works with an action scene. It's one of the few times where they're using an action scene to actually demonstrate a point. And that's what I appreciate.
To the plot.
And it also turns back around to one of my favorite aspects of Star Trek Discovery, which was the Lorca plot in that episode that sucked, Lethe, where he has all the stab marks on his back, indicating that he has been in a similar situation himself at one point. And it's turning around for, if you, the audience, are picking up on these things for when you're viewing it first time, or if you're not familiar with the previous Mirrorverse stuff, you're allowed to figure that from your brain, going, okay, this guy's tried to stab her with a knife in this. That kind of lines up with Lorca's scars on his back. That's cool. And that's what I appreciate about this scene. This scene is a payoff to one of my favorite visual storytelling moments without it spelling it out very obviously, being like, I'm grabbing out and like...
It doesn't go, hey, we literally stab people in the back all the time. You remember those scars that you saw
They didn't do
ago?
that.
And you don't...
And that's what I appreciate
Lorca's
about it.
Scars again.
Not that I remember, maybe, but I can't remember.
Like in this episode, they don't like refresh your memory.
They don't have a flashback halfway through the episode randomly, like they did in other ones.
And it's not like because
the only character who knows about them is the Admiral.
That would have made that stupid thing in that. Like,
when he's in the pain chamber, when he's in the agonizer.
When Michael is helping Tilly get dressed if they side jump to Lorca getting dressed,
Yeah,
and we're
that would've been
seeing
silly.
him and his
And it would
scars,
only, but it would
and
only remind us,
puffed on his shirt.
the audience, because the only other character who knows about that is the Admiral, and she's not here.
Nah.
I appreciate that about the scene. I do not appreciate what I made fun of a moment ago, where he has to be. And look, that's cheese, and this is a cheese that I do not care for. But if you do care for it, I've talked about how I like good cheese in my sci-fi Star Trek. This can be considered good cheese, but it was a little too much for me where I consider it bad, in which he has to state, they didn't respect me. And he's just basically monologuing and letting her know, I'm going to attack you now. And then the fight scene itself was a little bit too stagey for me. It's a little bit too choreographed. It doesn't feel as messy and as scrappy and as sloppy as one of those in like small like location fights would be. It felt very choreographed. It felt like a dance. It felt like Star Wars prequel level of. It felt like, got to hit this mark, got to hit this mark, got to hit this mark, got to kick this, got to fly up, we're going to do this, and lights will flash at this precise moment, it's got to do this.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit too much like a dance.
I think that was also something that we were criticizing before, is the way that the fight scenes don't feel like they've sunk into the bodies of the actors and the stunt
They don't
performers.
feel heavy.
No, it does feel too methodical and rehearsed. It doesn't have a natural flow to it, which
They don't get tired.
both of us agree that that's not the fault of the people doing it. It's that they haven't had enough time to do their jobs well.
It's a mixture of the choreography is too precise and the direction isn't going for the thing that we desire. It's not the actors or the stunt people's faults. It's just sometimes you can admire all the choreography, but there's got to be a little realism there. That's why people like Die Hard. That's why people like those John Wick movies, because you feel the pain, but also you feel them getting tired. You feel them getting, and they're scrappier fights, and they're messy, but in the mess, there's beauty there. But in this, a little too stagey, a little too much like it's a dance, and that's a little bit annoying, because a fight like this could have been dirty and rough and raw, and that could have hammered in the point of what that scene is representing of. They fight dirty in this universe, and to survive, you've got to fight dirty. You've got to stab this guy in the fucking gut, look him right in the eyes, and you do not say sorry. You have to look him right in the eyes as he dies, let his body fall, and then continue on being this mean, soulless motherfucker. But instead, they've got to have it be a dance. It's got to be very stagey, and she's got to be nearly crying in his face about it, and it's just... no, you've got to suck this up. And then in the bedroom scene with Ash Tyler, that's where you can break. When you're by yourself and you're like, Jesus Christ. But no.
No, okay.
The crew, they all bowed after I won. But they didn't bow deeply enough. Not like they did with you. I needed to make them fear me. And now I finally think I know how.
We talked about last episode, I did particularly, that it had cemented finally the Star Trek Discovery format that I do not like. This episode reinforces that. And what I mean is melodrama, high emotions, lots of action for no necessary reason, lens flares, but the biggest is technical. The cameras are always spinning. There's always jarring, quick cuts. And they insist. And this episode is directed by Jonathan Frakes, who is William Riker. He's directed several episodes of Star Trek, some movies. I've even defended his directing work in my own other podcast where I talked about Thunderbirds. I like Jonathan Frakes as a director. He's not the best director ever made, but he knows how to direct. In this episode, he's spinning the camera so much, and there's so many quick cuts. There's just so much arrogant filmmaking, epileptic editing, and it's done because they aren't confident. They aren't confident in filming scenes in which people are just chatting about science or chatting about how to formulate a plan. The scene with the spinning thing can work if there's an intensity there, but these people are just talking about a mundane thing where yes, there's tension to the thing, but it's not like pressing tension. It's not like immediately like, if we don't solve this in 5 minutes, we're going to die. It's, okay, so how best do you think we're going to... It's a Star Trek conversation, but they film it like it's a Mission Impossible sequence. And last episode said it, and this one's following through, and I fucking hate it.
So I mentioned that scene earlier in reference to
The spinning scene.
the one that makes me dizzy. And the main reason that it makes me dizzy, of course, is because of the constant movement.
And the cuts.
But the main thing that makes that one a scene where I do have to look away, because otherwise I get sick watching it. Like, it genuinely makes me nauseous. And it's because of the CGI map in the middle.
Yeah, the hologram.
Because...
It
like,
changes.
If it was just seeing the different faces and it moving
That would be
around,
fine. That would be fine enough.
Like, I can spot, so
Mm.
it doesn't make me dizzy. But because of the map, I can't do that because the map is in front of their faces in almost every shot.
Also,
and
when
since
you-
every shot is a different angle, I can't.
And different, like, shot type, medium, close up, whatever. One of the things too is, because it's a bright hologram, when you cut, the cut in itself, when it cuts to, you know, a wide shot to a mid shot and cut, it also makes the bright light of the hologram flash momentarily in your eyes. Thus, I say it's epileptic type of filming and editing, because it makes your eyes sting, as well as the sting of a jarring cut from this type of shot to this type of shot while moving. That's what
And
gets
the
me, is there's
going
the
back and
constant...
forth as well, because like you can have that like where you're cutting down the shots, like from a wide shot, mid shot, close up, inset shot of the map.
Yeah.
Like, that would flow.
But what's the
that's,
map
like,
even serving in that conversation? There comes a point where they don't even need it.
Nothing. It should have been turned off. It should have been turned off after he says that Stamets and I wanted to explore this after the war. Map off. This is what's happening now.
But the filming, the editing, the Star Trek Discovery style is aggressive at points, but not throughout the whole episode.
No.
But I will say this, like the previous episode,
I feel
has
like-
truly cemented it, and each episode is following this filming style, this editing style
it
that
continues
I
to
do
ramp
not
up.
that I do not gel with. From just a visual level, it is accosting. It is very, very, very aggressive to look at, and I keep saying the phrase, they don't have the confidence of this. They don't have the That's incorrect. They do have confidence. Far too much confidence. It feels more that they think that we are dumb because we can't appreciate a conversation scene. We can't appreciate a scene in which 3 characters or 2 characters are just chatting about a plan. We need to spin the camera around and do all these close-ups and zooms and have dramatic music stings, because the audience will be bored by characters talking about science or the plot or whatever.
Okay.
And I hate that the filmmaking, the literal filmmaking, is telling me you're dumb.
Yeah.
You need to be entertained by the swooshing camera, the quick cuts. I hate that it feels like they're very confident in my lack of intelligence or my lack of attention span. We are no longer in the age of you catch a thing once a week or once every now and then on TV at 9 o'clock. We're in the age of streaming. We're in the golden age of television. This show looks like a movie. There's so much good stuff here, but when it just comes to filming, spin the camera around, quick cuts, zoom out, Dutch angle. Why are we doing there's so many fucking Dutch angles? The camera's constantly moving, and if it's not, it's still, and it's just quick cuts, and it is just so aggressive, and lens flares. This episode, surprisingly, did not have as many lens flares. Thank you, Jonathan. I will know, however, that you will abandon that principle in the future, because I remember a particular episode he directed that's filled with lens flares, but I hate it.
The Terran culture appears to be predicated upon an unconditional hatred and rejection of anything and everything other.
That means us. There's no way we're asking these neighbors for a cup of sugar.
I'm still bummed that the Tribble, Lorca's Tribble, which is just there for surface level referencing, never detects him as a Klingon. Oh, but Ryan, he had his genetic code and all that altered, blah, blah, blah. And this was before the Great Tribble Hunt, except for we don't know that until several years after the show was made because of the short tricks, evidently, which I have not seen any of. So, But it's still a bummer that the Tribble didn't detect him, because it would have made what is at first a surface level reference for the fans or for people who know Star Trek, like, oh, Star Trek, that's the thing with the pointy-eared guy in Tribbles, right? It would have made what was at first a surface level reference something that actually mattered to the plot. That would have been a cute little, like, okay,
you need to
neat.
remember the writers either haven't watched or aren't allowed to reference.
Well, let me get into some positives.
In a meaningful way.
Let me get into some positives. This is where I'm going to disagree with you for this episode in particular. It does seem like the writers or the creators of the show have watched Star Trek in this particular episode, because there's lots of nuanced things about this.
I feel more like they wrote a Wikipedia page, but go on.
Well, as someone who's seen the Mirrorverse stuff, there's lots of little winks and nods and references and homages and direct lifts of things from other Mirrorverse things. So then maybe they've just watched the Mirrorverse stuff, like when it's in DS9, Cisco has to pretend to be his dead counterpart, and the whole, the what was it, the agony chambers or whatever that was in that, and just the imagery, and they just seem to have a lot of stuff going on that I appreciate. This is an example of when I often ask, I said this before, of when I ask that question, who's this show for, where they do reference deep, heavy, nuanced, intricate lore from the Star Trek universe, and they just throw it in there, and it would confuse random people who have never seen Star Trek and anger people who have seen Star Trek. This particular one has been handled well enough, in which there's lots of nuanced little tidbits and references and things that people like myself will understand and we recognize and go, okay, but enough of it is communicated across that general masses, general people who haven't seen those will still get something out of the plot. And I think that they did a pretty good job in this singular episode doing that, because we've seen them fall on their face doing that so many times, and they will continue to do that in season 2, especially with Spock, that they didn't need to have a 5-minute clip at the beginning of this episode to explain previously on Mirror Mirror. They didn't need that. I appreciate that. I feel like this episode, and hopefully the future Mirrorverse episodes, it does feel like these writers, these creators, these people involved do have a passion, do have an interest, and do have a love, dare I say, for the Mirrorverse stuff, although there's still things that we'll talk about in the next few episodes that I wish that they nailed. Vulcans being good guys is something that I'm not huge on. The fact that, in TOS, women were basically treated like slaves or second-class citizens, and they don't want to touch that in this. There's stuff like that I wish they had the balls to put in, but...
I want one thing, Captain. Transfer me. On the Enterprise, I am humiliated. On another ship, I can hunt fresh game. I've got my rank. Don't I? I've been a captain's woman, and I like it. I'll be one again if I have to go through every officer in the fleet.
A nitpick. Just the no security needed.
I wrote that. You got like a literal prisoner of war.
Just press
one
a
of the
button.
high-ranking Klingons that you've met.
No security code needed.
No, I mean, just press button.
Just open button.
Open button.
Also,
I know he's the head of security and all that, but literally there was no one there.
No, like if it
we didn't have a scene in which he dismissed someone. That I would have been tolerant of. Yes. I would have been like, okay, cool. But it seems like she's got no guard and anyone can visit her anytime they like. It's kind of like whoop-de-doo, like La La Land, like. Oh, I'm just gonna visit that, that evil Klingon lady who's a fucking evil lady who raped me. Lorca knows her. I mean, remember that scar on her face? Lorca did that.
Okay.
Or was it Ash Tyler that did that? I think it was Lorca, right? That shot her in the
Lorca,
face.
yeah. Because we were just like, we know that
It's not just some random Klingon. This is a
Yeah.
Klingon they know specifically, and they know is a high enough ranking one to at least have been a captain of a ship, and they're just treating it like, whatever, just no guards. At least if they showed a scene of him dismissing someone, I
They
would have
would've-
swallowed it.
Yeah. Or at least if he had to, like, if he pressed open and then had to type in a code.
No. Button.
At least.
Button.
Just
Button opens it.
Okay. So from that scene, and actually, I've actually got the full thing because I'm just like, oh.
It was
This
a-
really shows the melodrama.
It was a tactful scene.
So this is starting with Laurel. You have another name.
Oh, God. Their prayer.
Say it. Say it. This is after the prayer.
Oh, yeah. There was a line. The prayer should have worked.
You know what my name is. If you don't tell me what you did to my mind, to my soul, I'm gonna make you scream it as you die.
Yeah, it's very melodramatic, and that's another thing. That whole sequence really frustrates me on a rewatch, and like we said last episode, I don't want to hammer it home as seriously as I did last episode. Listen to the last one, but this story has been handled in a way in which it's been presented she was his rapist and he was the victim or survivor, whichever term you feel more comfortable with. But either way, he had been she had put this terrible wound on him, and this scene plays to that. Even on the rewatch, we know the truth, but the scene itself, the way it's shot, the way it's framed, the way it's acted, is portraying it like that. But then obviously halfway through the scene, it's like revealed, oh wait, no, he's actually a secret Klingon, and she knows him, and he's Vok, obviously, but they're gonna wait to reveal that more proper.
Yeah, but
the scene is played out with, the thing that makes it annoying is
so
the scene has been played out with such melodrama that this is like the conclusion, the concluding thing on him being suffering from PTSD in this way. This is the conclusion of concluding factor of that, and it's played with such melodrama when in the previous episode the discussion he had with Michael, a little bit over the top with the acting sometimes, but it was handled in a much more mature fashion, and this is where we go with that, and it's a joke, honestly. It's a fucking joke. I'm
not myself. You have another name. Say it. You know what my name is. If you don't tell me what you did to my mind, to my soul, I'm gonna make you screaming as you die. The prayer should make you remember something is wrong. You're damn right something's wrong. Now tell me.
Tilly was just fun in this episode. I keep saying the phrase fun, but I liked her pretending to be Captain Killy. I liked the threats she made. I liked seeing her with straight hair. It was very interesting.
And the dyed blonde bits.
Tips, baby.
Yeah.
And
I'm like, I kind of dig it.
I thought it was just an interesting flip, and them all having to act like assholes is interesting. We do know one thing that was always something, and I wonder if they're going to follow through on this. They say that it's most likely what has happened is they've switched places with the entire ship of the Mirrorverse Discovery.
Yes.
Now, I don't remember how that plays through, but I remember when I heard that.
You were so
I was
excited.
like, oh, fuck, that's great, because Discovery in our
so
universe
much
has
hope.
been put in such a high esteem
So
that
much hope.
when they flip back, everything's going to be fucked up because the whole crew of Mirrorverse people in the most prestigious ship has been left alone in our universe. What kind of shit are they going to get up to? And I do not think we ever find out if they did anything or if they even went.
It doesn't go anywhere.
I don't remember. Maybe it does, but in my recollection, I just remember we flip back 9 months or however into the future, and it's like never referenced. Like, whatever happened to that ship? Do we know? I do not remember.
It may go somewhere, but it doesn't go anywhere that matters, because otherwise one of us probably would remember what had happened.
That is the thing. We would remember.
I also like...
But I guess the whole plot of if there was someone from the Mirrorverse in our universe is Lorca's plot.
I also liked some of Lorca's lines, particularly the decency is weakness.
Yeah. Yeah, and I got to appreciate in Mirror Mirror, it was always annoying to me that the evil Captain Kirk got captured and figured out really quickly because he was like
super
crazy.
easy.
It was super easy. It was a sloppy piece of like it was you could have made that very fascinating, very interesting. And that feels the case with this where they're presenting this idea that an entire ship filled with these people have been left, and not only just a ship, but our most prestigious, our most trusted, our most powerful ship in a war has been left in our universe, and no one knows about this alternative universe stuff.
No.
Rebel logs show their ships being attacked by a vessel with a warp signature matching our Discovery, but with a quantum signature matching this universe.
They're hailing us again, sir.
That signature seems to have vanished at the same coordinates where we popped in.
So,
It is possible we switched places with their Discovery.
Destiny didn't get me out of prison. You did that, Captain.
Can we talk about that's actually a really interesting scene?
Yeah.
Because the show itself has
really
a
like-
boner about fate and destiny, but is that true?
Lorca is so bent on the idea of the fact that like they found each other in this universe and in that universe.
Do you think he believes that?
Yeah.
Do you?
I think he does.
But he knows. But he knows that he manufactured it that way, right? He
Yeah.
knows that he
But
plucked her.
I-
He knows that he's a Mirrorverse guy. He knows that he's made this intricate plot so that all of this could happen,
I
right?
think
He knows that,
he-
but do you think he's just that deluded in himself?
I think it's more that he feels that he is doing the bidding of fate, that they are destined, that he is
And he's owed power.
like to me, Lorca feels like he's the hand of God.
Yeah, I guess I just wish that throughout the series I got more of an impression that he's a guy that believes in fate.
Oh yeah, that's
it
just
seems
me.
more because
That's
a
just
part-
me reading into the character.
Well, I think a part of the issue is the Lorca that we know throughout the show has been a character playing a character. He's pretending to be the good Star Trek captain guy, but he's secretly an asshole, and he lets that bleed through. We don't properly get to know who the real Lorca is until he reveals himself, and then we get to know that. But I wish there was a bit more of maybe I just haven't been appreciating the obvious moments of him being someone who believes in fate and destiny and stuff, because he does reference the fact that he's lucky to have her and all of this, but upon my rewatch I've been thinking about that as more of he knows why he chose her, but in this scene I do believe that he is deluded in himself, that he believes that he's this, like you said, the hand of God or a player of fate, and that his fate is to be with her and to be the supreme leader of the Mirrorverse, and that he needs to do all these things to do that. And I think was probably my favorite scene in the actual episode.
Yeah.
I think also
And
him and Michael as actors, those two, when they're allowed to, and honestly I wish they had more scenes like this, they actually do have good chemistry when they've overcome the she doesn't trust him. I think that they do have a good rapport and good chemistry as performers, although sometimes I wish that she was a little bit less wooden, which I know we've talked about before, Vulcan history, whatever, but sometimes she's a little bit too wooden for my liking. On the other scale, we get her and Ash Tyler's chemistry, which is melodramatic as fuck, and it's just false. It doesn't feel genuine.
Here is my analogy. It's a wet, floppy fish that's dying on a ship.
Hey, don't call Ash that just because he sweats a lot.
Like, on the bottom, like...
He's having PTSD, Rachel. You can't make fun of his floppy hair.
He's, like, their relationship and their chemistry. That's what it is to me. They're showing me and making a big deal about it, but it has no weight. It has no emphasis. And it has no impact or relevance on anything else, really.
As much as I like modern television and where we're at, we're in this golden age, we've got the more cinematic quality where we're really character exploration stuff. I think one of the biggest issues I have with current generation television is romance. And it feels like Star Trek Discovery is like my ambassador to this problem of, it feels earn it. They speed through it. It's a non-relationship, yet it's treated with so much gravity, so much gravitas, so much melodrama, so much of like they were meant to be, and there's this Shakespearean tragedy underpinning it, and it's just false. I don't feel an actual relationship there, and that's something I feel with a lot of TV shows. There's only a few shows in which the romance aspect actually feels earned.
There's not even a real sense of lust.
Well, they do bang at the end while Lorca's getting tortured simultaneously, so that was quite funny.
That was
funny.
That was one of my nitpicks. Was the decision like why? Like there.
I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I had a laugh. I was like, oh.
Yeah, like even before that, there are plenty of moments where we were like, and the episode should have stopped there.
What do you think of Ash Tyler's actor now? I think I asked you early on, and you weren't too sure. You wanted more time with it. I think he's that great. Maybe I haven't seen him in anything else. This is all I've seen him in. I don't buy him. I just don't buy it. And I thought, because one of my issues with their relationship is I think they have no chemistry.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote him that scene where they're talking in the canteen. I wrote acting because you could see them acting. You could see the acting. You could see through the characters and see the actors going through the gears in their brain of how I'm going to articulate this word and how I'm going to lean my... I could see it. But I'm wondering,
like, this
is he...
my good side, guys.
I know people like him. I know there's a lot of people online that like that guy because he's hot. I can't speak to that. I think he's not the hottest guy ever, but he's got a look. But I don't know if he's any good. I think he's a wet fish flopping on the shore dying. I don't know. Him and Laurel, him and Lorca, him and any other character, I always find him just... I don't think he's terrible. I just don't think he's that great. I just don't think he's great. And I think that affects the core of their relationship other than, like I said, I don't think the show has actually made any real proper time and effort into blossoming it into the way that they've done a cheat code there. They're like, see, we did the work in like the one episode and that's enough, right? Yeah. No, not really. And their lack of chemistry doesn't help that. It hinders it.
Okay, so what do I think of the actor that plays Ash Tyler? I agree with what you said, but to me, I also haven't seen him in other things, and I don't know how much of a seasoned performer he is. But to me, he brings that attitude of a real newbie in terms of, I have to perform. Look at me performing. Like that stage actoriness that you see in a lot of actors that obviously transfer from theatre.
Even Stamets has that. He's a big stage actor, and sometimes he feels a little stage actory. Sometimes he plays it to the back.
I feel it more with Ash, with the way that he plays off characters, because we never get scenes with characters other than Michael alone, really. And Lorca?
We do. Sometimes Paul and Tilly.
When did we last see Tilly alone?
Oh, Tilly. Them alone.
Yeah. That's what I
Oh, sorry. I think you meant characters alone outside of Michael being there.
I meant them actually being alone in a room.
I think I remember Ripper alone in space. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I remember that. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
I also like that they're being consistent with establishing the idea that they don't know who the Emperor is and there's no information.
Did you ever doubt who it was? Did you ever doubt?
Not really. I hoped that I was wrong because I hoped that they were going to do something more interesting, but they didn't.
For you.
Yeah.
My sister went over the fucking moon when she found out who the Emperor was.
Yeah.
I was indifferent.
And also the way that her bridge crew calls her Sir at the end.
Yeah, that was funny.
Establishing that, like,
There's a certain
certain level of power associated with the male pronouns is the way that I took it, as well as establishing that it's not offensive to
and everyone
call
thinks
a woman a sir, because we've consistently seen the emperor be referred to with the male version, not empress.
My final point:
Mm-hmm.
Mirrorverse costumes are cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Not as
Ooh,
sexy though.
I like the pins.
The pins are cool. Not as sexy though.
Nah.
And that's a byproduct of the times, I guess. Like I said before, we'll talk about it in future episodes, but the TOS, Mirrorverse, and ladies, it wasn't great to be a lady in the Mirrorverse, and I think that this modern age could have really made a stronger critique on that than TOS did, but instead we gotta whatever. Well, I'll talk about that in future episodes. So, Rachel,
We don't actually want social
Rachel?
commentary in our sci-fi.
talking about social commentary in our sci-fi, I think I'm hearing a little Hudar. A little Hudar. Bleep, bleep, bleep. What's that? A funeral the funeral march? Why? Why would we have the funeral march in here? I don't know why we'd have that.
Not a
I-
beloved, well-developed, well-rounded character who's like a queer icon. No.
Well, no
Don't
one's
tell
I don't
me.
think anyone said he's a queer icon. What they have said is he's a character, and the show said that. Where the Hudar section, section of the show in which we, very in a facetious type of manner, talk about the great character of Hugh Colbert, a character that, many people have kept telling me over the years since the show aired that he is a character, and his death actually means something because he is a character.
We get so much Hugh in this episode
Do
compared
we?
to others.
Do we though?
Again,
I know.
grading on a
I want to
curve.
note that he has always been credited as guest starring
Yes.
Wilson Cruz. So the show never pretends in the credits that he's an actual character, but the show pretends that he's an actual character via this episode and future episodes by the fact that he gets killed, and it's supposed to be meaningful in some way, shape, or form, other than the obvious.
We get 4 or 5 scenes with Hugh in them and
That's
having lines.
Whoa, that's
He
like
doesn't just smile and nod.
he
does. Says
he
things.
does smile and nod though.
He does. He does.
Before we get into the obvious, the nitty-gritty Hugh stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I think we should just, take a moment of silence to remember the great character of Hugh. He unfortunately passed away in this episode. Don't worry, he'll be back because bad writing. But let's take a moment of just... Let's just take a moment of pause.
Bullshit.
And that... Oh, wow, you broke it. That moment of pause was... that moment of pause, how long it was, we could have put all of his dialogue in that pause. That's how long it was. So Hugh Colbert dies in this episode, and I remembered I was shocked when it first happened, not because of the reasons the show wanted me to be
it's
shocked.
shocking. That's not why.
But I was shocked at the fact that I knew exactly what the show was going to do and proceeded to do. I mean, I didn't know all of it. But proceeded to do, which was in 2018, that episode came out, in our Star Trek show, a series, Star Trek, that has not always been the best when it comes to gay representation. In fact, barely has ever done it, let's be honest.
I think that the writers, this is my little...
They planned it out from the beginning, Rachel.
My theory of... They did plan it out because they thought that the idea of killing your darlings was kill the gays.
Bury your gays.
Bury your gays. So I think that they got them confused in their mind, and then that's why they were like, no.
All right, enough joking around about the fucking writers. It's despicable. I despised it when it first happened, and I'm not one to point. And when I watch things, I don't always think about these type of tropes and cliches and stuff. I just kind of let it wash over me and then think about it afterwards. But it was such a guttural reaction in which I instantly saw what the future storyline was going to be. I didn't see it necessarily with him coming back because I thought that would be too stupid, but boy was I wrong. But in 2018, in Star Trek, a series that has never been that great when it comes to queer representation within the text, it's always pussyfooted around. It's always been cautious. It's been pretty homophobic, let's be honest, especially behind the scenes. If you look at the behind the scenes, especially during 90s Trek, you finally get to this where we've got gay characters. And what do? You do the bury your gays trope here. And in case you don't know what that means, watch any show with a gay character. You'll get it eventually. Even fucking Joss Whedon couldn't help himself.
Yeah, I was about to say, watch basically any Joss Whedon
It's just
thing and
an
you'll
excuse
find it.
of ringing out drama of we've got to kill a prominent, not even prominent in this case, but we've got to kill a gay character that is an emotional stability for another gay character. And sometimes you don't even get that.
No.
But it's an excuse of we kill off our gay character and it causes drama, and that's all this story proceeds to do. And when I saw it the first time, that was my immediate reaction. My immediate reaction was, are we seriously doing this? Not only are we killing a gay character, we're killing a person of color as well. All of the stuff. They might as well have just spray painted on his fucking grave that we don't give a shit, we do it for drama. But what's new, Rachel? At the end of last episode, I just said that the writers aren't afraid of using rape for drama. They're not afraid of using rape for false drama and melodrama. Why the hell wouldn't they be afraid of fucking killing a gay character, let alone a gay character who's a person of color, let alone one of the few gay characters Star Trek even has? What's fucking new? And this is why we did the Hugh because one of the reasons is the fact of this is so fucking ludicrous. But maybe upon the rewatch, you guys didn't really note down on your initial watch that Hugh was this big important character that really meant something, and it wasn't just emotionally devastating for Paul that he died, but for us, the audience, it was emotionally devastating because he was such a character. No, he isn't. This episode, he doesn't even get a fucking character. All he does is medical mumbo fucking jumbo, and that's all he does. And he strokes Paul's leg when he walks by him. That's it. That's all you fucking get of him as a character.
We also get a kiss. Thank you very much.
Sorry, a big old kiss.
Yeah. And he gets a warning from Stamets. A
prophetic warning. The enemy is here.
Yes. Okay. So I got really pissed off at a few of his lines before he dies, obviously.
I did too. At Hugh, yeah.
I got annoyed that he was just like trying to console Tilly, which I understand, but he's just like, Paul is your superior officer and he gave you an order. And it's like, no, that doesn't cover this. That doesn't. Still
got some...
She still should have reported it.
She's still involved.
She is saying, I'm regretful that I was complicit in this. I should have come to you when I learned about this, which is what she should have done. It's what she was going to do. Stamets convinced her otherwise.
But what's new? But this is something that's always a precedent in this new iteration of Star Trek, which is being complicit in something like even this, or in Star Trek Picard, being complicit in murders, all this kind of stuff. It's okay because you're just following orders. That's always been the antithesis of what Star Trek is. Every time you get an evil admiral, every time you get a corrupt Starfleet person or whatever, it's always pointed out that it was wrong. And it was bad that you were following orders or that you were doing this. Yeah, you can feel sorry for it, but it wasn't great. It was always still framed as, at least, yeah, they may get away with it like Riker did with his previous captain, commander, but there's still a mournful, like, well, that was wrong. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't have done it. But in this, it's like, no. What you did was right. What you did there was right. Because the plot needed to happen, Tilly. And if you did the normal thing, the plot wouldn't continue. Like, if I did my fucking job instead of telling Lorca that he didn't do his job.
Yeah, I understand why he blames Lorca.
Lorca's right, though, right?
But no. Like, Lorca's sentiment is correct, but also, as we pointed out, like, we keep on referring back to the previous episode because It is heavily linked. But he wasn't doing his job. He should have been monitoring him. He's
never been doing his fucking job.
Which is why it also pissed me off when he has the line, "Fortunately, his well-being now falls to me." And it's like, no, you were always responsible for his well-being.
You're the doctor, motherfucker. We don't have a scene. If we had a scene in which Lorca specifically blocked Hugh from being able to perform medical tests on him, if we had a scene like that, if we had a scene in which Lorca went face to face with him and said,
"No, you're not allowed
you're not
in
going to do that.
engineering. No, you're not allowed to do this.
We don't
no,
get that
you're
scene.
not monitoring him." Something. But no, we don't get that.
The only crew member, honestly, to have a literal conflict of interest, like a literal conflict of medical ethics with Hugh, was Saru about Ripper.
Mm-hmm.
Not Lorca.
No.
Lorca wasn't even fucking there for that. That's literally, Saru's been the really only character that has come up to Hugh and said, "No, you're not going to do your job here."
Ryan, Hugh says, "I'm the most qualified to treat him. Do you even care about him?" Or something along those lines.
And that's the thing.
I
Lorca's right.
I am the most qualified to treat him. Why?
I know why.
We haven't even been referred to the fact that he's the head of the department.
I know why. Because he is a genius who made that technology that's on him. So the implication there.
And the
but
cuff.
But that's the logic, right? He has made technology to enhance it, so he knows it inherently. That's the logic there. We understand that's implied logic. Okay, that's the steps here. But Lorca is correct. You have an attachment. You have a conflict of interest here as a doctor to patient. You are too involved.
You should not be and could not be your partner's primary physician.
And the scene plays out to
it's
show
an
that Lorca's
thing.
And as we already have a bias, because we've already said that he's a terrible doctor, he should have been doing all these things. Remove even that. The scene itself provides the evidence that Lorca is correct by the way that Hugh counters him in a very prissy and personal way with these snappy, snide little remarks and lines like, "Do you even care about him?"
Okay.
That kind of stuff is not showing that he's being professional about this. It is showing that he's being personal about it, and it's counteracting his own argument. But the scene still plays out like, that Hugh told that Lorca off, didn't he? That evil old Lorca.
I also have an issue.
It was Lorca that made Stamets commit this on himself, not Stamets doing it to himself. It's not like Stamets is a big boy who did this to himself.
You know, if we go back to the first time we meet Culber, he's always been suspicious and leery of Captain Lorca.
How's the patient, Dr. Culber?
Well, I took care of the skull fractures first. Another millimeter and the palatine bone would have pierced his cortex.
I think he's always been concerned about how far he's pushed Paul.
Well, one tends to worry when they're doomed to love a brilliant but reckless maniac who's willing to risk his life for glory.
The captain was in danger.
Captains are in danger every day.
But, you know, it was important for me when we were developing Dr. Culber that he had this big heart, but he was also someone who was formidable, who could stand up to authority, who, you know, had no problem voicing his opinions and insisting on going the right way.
Yeah. Be ready to force the creature to comply.
I will not be party to murder.
Doctor, I was not talking to you.
So I think we achieved that. We achieved that.
I also have an issue with Hugh either just being in denial or lying to Lorca about Stamets, because he says that Stamets is confined for his own protection.
Yeah.
Right after he'd just been thrown across the room into a medical cart. That is not for Stamets' protection. We have seen nothing about him hurting himself. He was the one that got thrown across the room and just stands up and says, "I'm fine."
That was an interesting moment too, because that scene I wish played out in a more interesting fashion of he gets propelled across the room, Tilly reacts, he gets up and he's very like matter of fact about it. This is the one moment where he should have actually shown more of a genuine concern. We've seen him more concerned about Paul in the fucking Harry Mudd episode. He showed more genuine concern in the Harry Mudd episode where Paul wasn't fucking as bad as this, but a little episode where his partner of who knows how long, I can't remember, has literally just assaulted him, like thrown him across a room, something that Paul has never done before. He barely shows any reaction to it.
And even...
Now's the time where he's playing it like a cold... Yes. I noticed in this episode... I don't know if it's a choice of the actor or choice of direction of he's very cold in this episode, very cold and analytical and very like calculating. And you could say, oh, but Ryan and Rachel, it's his coping mechanism for this. We don't know that. We don't know Hugh as a character. When I know that fucking Bones McCoy is doing a coping mechanism by being extra gruff and extra angry and extra crotchety and over the line on things, I know that's a coping mechanism from him because we know who Bones McCoy is. We understand his psychological makeup. We understand his ideology. We understand him as a character. So when he does something like that, we understand that something's wrong and this is how he's coping with it. We do not know Hugh well enough to know that that's his coping mechanism. No. And the show doesn't state that's his coping mechanism because it's too busy snapping his fucking neck like a twig so that we can do a bury your gaze trope just so that we can pat ourselves on the back in season 2 that we brought him back. And he's still not a character.
No.
You know, as an out gay writer with an ensemble that's nothing but, you know, LGBT positive and a writing partner who has supported me my entire career in terms of being out and this, that, and the other, there's no way that you hire Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz to play the first gay couple on Star Trek and have them go for 10 episodes and say it's over. So, you know, but the whole point of this was, you know, he's the smartest one on the ship. He's putting the clue trail together. Yeah. And so this was a death that he was not just a hapless victim.
Now, the story has to play out, right? That's one of the huge issues with Star Trek Discovery is stories just have to, they reverse engineer them. They know where they want them to go, so they've got to force them.
But Ryan,
and we
have technology to discover what they used to call brainwashing.
Yeah, the Manchurian Candidate. Yeah, I know that reference too, guys. But they got to reverse engineer these storylines, and since they know the endpoints, they override where the logic would progress to a dire degree. And this storyline is one of those in particular where Hugh Culber is such a terrible doctor that he has discovered for a fact that this guy is a secret Klingon spy. Who does he tell this information to first? The secret No. The secret...
Nobody on his team. He tells the patient.
He tells the person who is, in his professional opinion...
Insane.
No, not really? Insane. No.
Like, that's...
No. In his professional opinion, you literally said it. You are not you. You are, in fact, not Ash Tyler. You are a secret spy. Wouldn't you tell your superior officer? Wouldn't you tell someone? Like, wouldn't he tell Lorca? No, because he's got a beef with Lorca. See? That's how it's resolved. If this was a real show, like, if this was a really well-written show that cared about the internal logic and didn't care about the drama plot twist of, ooh, he snaps his neck, and if it actually wanted to work towards those, it would have those moments in which he tells Lorca, and then they go, aha, and then this, and then this. But no, he's a dumbass who has to tell the patient themselves that, hey, I think you're a secret spy, and I'm going to tell you alone in this private room, and Paul's here, though, who can't protect me, because he's in a containment thing, and I'm just going to die like a chump? And I just don't care, and I don't feel for him. When he dies, my immediate reaction, other than, how dare they're doing a bury gaze, was, he was a dumbass. He was a dumbass. He literally walks up. It's like if I found out you, Rachel, was secretly a Nazi spy the whole entire time in my relationship. I walked up to you and I said, and I gave you a knife. And I just said, Rachel, I believe that you to be a Nazi spy who's come here to infiltrate my life and blah, 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 and you just stab me, and then I'm like, what a surprise!
I imagine it more as me, like, I have been a Nazi spy this whole time, and I'm just like, I'm sharpening and cleaning my knife and gun
No. That's too much because that indicates that I've come to where you are. I've asked you to come to me.
Yeah.
And I hand you something. Like, this is how obviously stupid it is. And really, Rachel, how do you feel about the fact that they do a bury your gays trope? And we know where the story goes. We know they bring him back. They know that they play the emotional drama of his death to the nth degree because Paul is there, but he's not really there. He hasn't recognized the tragedy that's unfolded in front of him, yet he has.
Yeah. I believe I would like to quote my initial reaction when we watched this for the first time.
Yeah.
Which was, fuck off, fuck you, and fuck them.
It really is one of those things in which that is a genuine reaction to have. Because they play it so straight. Mm-hmm. They play it like they've earned this. And that you should feel for this. And
the
what
editing
a twist!
is so proud of it. It's just like, this is the moment. And it's just like, no, it fucking isn't.
They haven't earned it. And that's the end of...
No, I do not want this shit. I do not want you shitting in my mouth. Please piss off.
And that's Hugh as a character for season 1. I mean... We learn literally nothing more about him in the episode. We've learned nothing about him as a character throughout the whole thing.
I will give it a smidge of something. I won't say credit because that's too much.
Rachel, just because he smiled and nodded doesn't count.
No. The way that he philosophically quantifies and qualifies what he meant by the word imagination.
Okay, great. So that really... Okay, well, you know what, Rachel? I take it all back. He was a great character. And when they did a bury gays and killed him off and they're going to ring it out for nothing but drama, unearned drama, and melodrama, you know what? I'm going to remember that and go, yeah, that great character, Hugh. Oh, what a great guy. Oh, we really understood his medical ideology. We really understood...
We know his expertise in his field and how he became the head of his department.
I don't even think he's the head. I don't think he's the head. I don't think they have a head.
I feel like they refer to him as...
Who cares? That's the main issue. We're saying we don't care. We have facetiously... And guess what? We're going to continue doing the Hugh down knowing that he won't come back for a while because he's not gone.
We know
he echoes throughout the rest of the show because he's going to keep coming back as a little ghost and he's going to keep coming back as a permanent fixture of gay tragedy.
Culber dies because he's the smartest person on the ship. Anybody who would have come to that conclusion and confronted Tyler on that would have died.
Is it time to disembark the USS Yum Yum now?
Yeah. What do you rate this episode out of Yum being good, and Yum being bad, and Yum Yum being good?
Yum Yum.
Why does it finally push over to that threshold?
It has a consistent theme and plot storyline.
Yeah.
It has moments where we actually get to see things and not just be told them. We're told them as well, but we actually get to see some things.
Yep.
And the plot matters in this specific episode to the overall narrative.
I rated a Yum. This episode was too bloated. It felt like it would never end. Like I said, I had lots of enjoyments, but there was just so many moments of bad writing. Like we didn't even say it, but there's so many moments where Ash Tyler just keeps reinforcing, I'm here to protect you. I'm not going to betray you. I'm making a promise. A promise that I will not break. A promise that I will keep to the straight and narrow. This won't be broken in 2 episodes time from now or however long. I'm a good man. You can trust me. Writing like that. The visual language of the episode was terrible a lot of the time. The spinning camera made me want to die. And Hugh, just Hugh, the whole Hugh stuff, it just drags it down. They think that they did this big old great thing, but at the end of the day, I think they fell on their face, and then they had to try and recoup it.
Oh, I don't want to go down as having given this a yum yum. I give it a yum. I take it back. I can't.
Are you?
I was like, oh, can I live with myself? And I decided no. That like, even though I can think of positives,
Rachel,
that's not enough to make. And it didn't make me as angry as it made you, but
It's weird because I don't feel like it's angry about it as the previous episode, but this one is just like it's frustrating. It's frustrating and it's a yum.
Bad.
Want to hear about next episode?
Yeah, sure. It'll be bad. But...
Season 1, episode 11. What's it called? It's called something stupid. Oh, The Wolf Inside. The plot goes as such, according to the IMDb. As the crew continues their guise, Burnham undergoes a merciless mission in hopes of helping the USS Discovery return home. Tilly works on restoring Stamets' neurofunction. People out there still listening, you can follow us on all those social medias, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at
Yum Yum Pod.
We have an email that you can email us at to let us know your opinions, your thoughts on the episodes that we have talked about on our show in general, and what you think about Star Trek. Tell us if we're right, tell us if we're right, if we're wrong, if you hate us, if you love us, all that kind of stuff. Feel free to email us at
yumyumpod@gmail.com.
yumyumpod@gmail.com. We also have a Patreon in which we obviously have extra content in which we talk about other Star Trek shows, we talk about other television shows, we talk about the movies, we talk about a bunch of extra stuff on there. So if you want a little bit more extra content, extra burgerlacious, lovely yum-yumness, you can find us, Yum Yum Podcast, on patreon.com. Rachel, pleasure as always to talk Star Trek Discovery with you. The grimace on your face makes me say I can't wait for next episode.
It's exhausting, but enjoyable.
Yep, that's right. So thank you, and thank you, and thank the Lord Yum Yum.
Pray to Yum Yum.
Pray to your... Oh, what's that? The prayer didn't work, Rachel. The Yum Yum prayer didn't work. Is it because these people need to give us ratings and reviews? You betcha. Yeah.